It's one of those things, like when M&K were like, hey, we'll send you out this $11,000, 5.1 for you to review. What are you powering with it? I'm like, oh, I have a Parasound 852 Plus. And they're like, okay, that's pretty good. If I had said I have I'm running it off of the AV receiver, they'd be like, oh, well, can you get your hands on an amplifier for this review? Is probably what they'd say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, well, they want they want to be able to feed it adequate power, and
they want to make sure their product is displayed properly. I guess
And this actually ties in with one of the questions back here. Okay, so Mawson says, I have a Yamaha RXV 2085. Do you reckon that I need external power amp for, I guess, for my speakers? So part of that depends on what speakers do you have them powered with, or connected with. If your speakers are inefficient,
if they have low sensitivity, and then how far away are you sitting?
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors. How big is your room? So, and need is always in the home theater space, especially, it's like, okay, do you need an amplifier? No. Will you benefit from an amplifier? Probably so. But the less efficient speakers you have, the more you're going to benefit. The further you sit back from the speakers, the more you're going to benefit. Bigger the room, so to speak. So there's a lot of different factors. So it's hard to say, like, do you need one? But look at the sensitivity. If your speakers have a sensitivity rating of, let's say, below 90 dB, then you're going to probably hear more of a difference adding an amplifier than I will with 104 dB speakers. So there's a big difference there.
Yeah, or even 96 dB.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, to get a 3 dB boost, you have to double your power output.
Correct.
From your amplifier. So getting 3 dBs up is tough.
Yeah.
Another thing I would add to that is what's the behavior of your AVR? Is it in a dedicated room? Because mine's in the living room. So the TV's been on since 11 a.m. When I sit down to watch a movie at 11 p.m. and the TV's been on all day, meaning both amplifiers have been on all day, the receiver's been on all day, I want to make sure I get the big bada boom, right? Right? Lilu Dallas. So I want all that dynamics. The AVR is not going to be able to handle giving out an awesome performance after being on for 12 hours. Right. So that's another thing to take into account. If it's in a dedicated room, you might be able to not deal with a power amplifier, but
So here, I think James asked, would you rather have power amps or dual sub? And so this actually partially answers the other question, in that, are you going to be using subwoofers? Because in car audio, you can totally tell the difference between amps, right? When you're running it for subs. It's obvious when an amplifier doesn't have as much power. When you have a ridiculous amount of subs, and you're just pumping out bass, right? But in most home theaters, the bass is handled by subs and they have their own amplifiers. And so let's say if you're cutting off most of your speakers at 80 hertz, how loud do you have to play speakers? If you're cutting off at 80 hertz, right? That's your crossover point. How much power do you really think you need to play those at a volume that's really loud? I'm uncomfortable, but it's still clean. The limit is not, there's no limit as far as it can get louder, but you're no, I'm done. I don't want any louder. At 80 hertz and above, I think most people might find that amount of power that you need is lower than what you expect. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing, but from my experience, I've noticed that.
I'll say this: if you were going between adding a second sub and getting a power and adding a power amp, you will notice more when you add that second sub. That will be your biggest leap in noticing, right? So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, definitely, it's gonna smooth out the bass.
Well, all right. So let me quantify that, or qualify it, or maybe. So you may get lucky. You may just put a second sub in there and it goes, man, it's so much better. I've got more bottom end. I always recommend this, man. At least buy a microphone and learn to use REW. There's some great tutorials out there. Chana's got some, Joe's got some, I've got some.
I don't have any. I don't
You don't have any?
No,
Like,
no.
But you've got some.
I just called Joe. I'm like, yo, dude,
Okay.
I'm trying to measure this thing. It's not working. He's like, okay, hold on.
So
do this,
just
do that.
doing a frequency sweep just to see, okay, how is the bass performing in my room? Because here's the reality. If you just put them where you think they look the best, you probably aren't going to get the best performance out of them. So you're going to need to play with them, moving around the room, just trying some different things, get a long XLR or RCA cable so that you can kind of move them around the room and kind of figure it out. But I just always want to kind of throw that disclaimer out there that just because you buy a second sub doesn't mean you're magically going to have
Sure.
automatic
There's
great
more.
bass.
There's more tweaking that needs to be done.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's not rocket science, and there's some great guys out there can help you with that process if you're just clueless about how do you integrate two subwoofers. But
what do you think about if you had the choice to get a
100%.
second sub
100%.
or 100% sub?
100% sub. Absolutely.
Most noticeable difference out of the two things. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like I said, just know that you can probably even get even more performance out of that sub if you're able to physically see what it's doing in your room, because your room's going to interact different than my room. So
I think that's solid advice to make sure that you're getting the most performance.
Sure, you paid for it
of anything. Yeah.
You paid for it, and I know it stinks. You got to buy another $150 mic, but the reality. I mean, that $100 could turn in, that could double the quality of your subwoofer that you just bought.
Exactly.
I mean, literally can be that dramatic.
That's what we're about to do, Chana. We're gonna make those rels do stuff they don't want it to do.
And so this is the same thing. Joe needs to have bass subs going down flat to 20.
To 10.
Do
right,
I
Michael?
notice that?
What are we talking about? You said
8.
Yeah, are you going to notice that? No, unless you know exactly the way your house vibrates to certain frequencies. Unless you know that, then no, you're not going to fucking notice. And a lot of those things will last how long? How long? Not even 2 seconds. Maybe.
Oh, dude, the grin on my face lasts way longer than 4 seconds.
Oh dude, I'm not talking about the grin. I'm talking about that hitting that frequency.
I know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Don't be a hater, Tana. Don't be a hater.
I'm not being a hater. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
When your stuff is hitting below 20, you'd be like, you're gonna be. Hey, you guys need this. You guys need this.
It's an experience. I'll be honest.
My wine glasses were breaking.
Yeah.
Please no. Those things are expensive.